Hi guys, this is Mr. Wood again. Mr. Atkins is going to a place where it was heavily influenced by a group of people named the Mongols. The Mongols originated from this area up here near what's now modern day Mongolia, north of China. They had there, for resources, lots and lots of horses. It's wide open grasslands out here, surrounded by deserts in the south, lots of horses, and that became their most valuable resource. For a long time, these were simple pastoral people. They would have herds of animals. They would go around to different places from pasture to pasture, bringing their animals along with them. They lived in movable tents called yurts. And so these people they had a nomadic lifestyle. They went around through this entire area, many different tribes. But one day along came this guy named Temujin. Temujin was a very ruthless person, and he had the sole goal of trying to unite the tribes together and begin conquest. In fact, he was so ruthless that in his attempt to grab power, he even killed his own stepbrother. And so once he comes about and he uses these tactics to gain power, he does end up uniting together a lot of these Mongolian clans, and he ends up creating an army. And his army is based on cavalry as well as bows. These guys were incredibly good horse riders. I mean, they've been around horses for generations. They had short bows. They had heavy cavalry. But these guys were just absolutely ruthless in the way they did things. And in 1210, they began to expand outside of Mongolia, and they began to conquer areas down to the south, and then began to spread beyond. They were so brutal in their tactics that they would go to a place, and if you even resisted them, if you fought back against them, they would kill anyone and everyone remaining that had survived the attack. So these guys were absolutely brutal. In fact, later on, once word of them spread, when they would approach a town, Genghis Khan, Temujin, he changed his name to Genghis Khan, took that title, he would send people into the town and ask for them to surrender. And if they did not surrender, he would then attack and slaughter them all. But the Mongolians weren't all bad. Once Genghis Khan took over most of everything that you see here in green, the largest land empire in history, he ended up establishing something known as the Pax Mongolica. That Silk Road that I mentioned in the last video, it goes pretty much all the way through this green territory that you see here. And so during the Pax Mongolica, the Silk Road was so safe because the Mongolians were there. They controlled almost every inch of it. That it was said you could go from one end of the Silk Road all the way to the other with a golden plate on your head, and no bandits would mess with you. No one would bother messing with you because they knew if they did, they would have to deal with the Mongols. Beyond that, while still trying to conquer areas, Genghis Khan did end up dying in battle. As a true warrior should, he died in battle. And he left behind his third and favorite son, Ogadai, to take over the empire. Ogadai wasn't nearly as great of a warrior as his father, but he was a good ruler. But as he was expanding in the territories here in Central Asia, three of Genghis Khan's grandsons ended up creating different empires. In fact, you can see those down here. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And so each one had control of one. One of the grandsons was here, one of the grandsons here, and one of the grandsons here. Ogadai was here. These guys continued to expand in all directions through the Middle East, the Muslim lands, through Europe, the Christian lands, down into China. They took over virtually all of Asia, getting it all the way over into Europe. As Batu expanded into Europe, he was continuing to go deeper and deeper into Europe, but Ogadai ended up dying in the middle of his campaign to try to take over Europe. And so, as a good nephew, he decided to go ahead and turn around and go back to the funeral. And that stopped the invasion of Europe. Had that death not happened, it is very likely that the Mongolians would have continued into Europe and taken over all of Europe, possibly gone even further down into the Arabian Peninsula and Africa. Once Ogadai dies, that leaves the Mongolian Empire fractured into these different territories, and each one of them over time ended up gradually declining. The Mongolians, when they came in, they didn't force anyone to accept their religion. They didn't force technologies on anyone. They only asked for tribute. You pay us, and we won't continue to attack you. And so many of the Mongols ended up settling in these other areas. They adopted the religions and cultures of the people that they had conquered. They adopted the technologies as they were going on conquest. They adopted technologies of siege weaponry and other things. And so the Mongols were very much the exception in history, in that they didn't force anything on people, but they accepted things, and they took those things and made them their own. And so that concludes my video. I leave you with a question. In the comments section, answer this question. I mentioned before that there were 4 different khanates, as they're called, where the grandsons ended up taking over. List in the comments the name of those 4 khanates for extra house points.